second you decide to tell the truth about something, you are filled with this, I don't want to get supernatural, but you are filled with this power from somewhere else. Try it. Tell the truth about something. You feel it every day. The more you tell the truth, the stronger you become.
No Rogaine in the propane.
Yeah! What an entrance!
That was awesome.
The wildest intro I've had ever. Someone just gave me this t-shirt.
Share this out everywhere, folks.
I'm going to wear it in the privacy of my own home. Al freaking Burma, baby.
Yeah!
What a great province this is, what a great country this is. In fact, I should be told, I've never said this to anyone, including my wife, but I know that in Canada it's official policy that coming out of the closet is good. Unless you're the Prime Minister. I'm going to reveal something about myself that I never revealed, which is that
Remember, ladies and gentlemen, this is for fundraising purposes. All donations can be made to my lawyer at natasha.calvino@gmail.com. Please make your password Ottawa.
I'm legitimately interested in Canada, and I am. And I always have been. And I wonder, why am I so obsessed with Canada? And I thought, because I'm part Canadian. My great-grandfather, actually my father's family was in the colonies. And then they brought democracy, and they're like, we're out. We're going to Nova Scotia. And so there's 100 years there. The refuses, they're still there, by the way. I think they're all liberals. But and then my great-grandfather's like, I'm going to try that again. So he comes to the United States, and I'm here as a result. So I feel it. In me is Canadian. And I've been all over your country. And I've been everywhere in your country, and I just think it's a remarkable place. And I think people don't quite understand what Canada is, because so much of it is bunkered up against our border. And I would argue, no offense, that the
Please, mods,
places in Canada
post the fundraiser up.
But once you get past that, it's just unbelievable. I've been to this city a lot because of your mountains, which I just find beyond belief. Really, the prettiest places I've ever been. This country is the prettiest country I've ever been in. The second biggest country in the world, bigger than the United States, deeper oil reserves in the United States, more natural resources in the United States, and 1/9 the population. And when I hear the lunatics that run your government are like, our population's growing, we're so excited. I'm like, really, you want to live in a crowded country? 40 million people in the world's second biggest country? That sounds like the kind of place I want to live. Like, what are you even talking about, you morons? But anyway, so I've been a lot, and every time I come, so many things strike me. First and foremost, the natural beauty, the unbelievable natural beauty, prettier than Switzerland, in my opinion. And the second thing I notice is the politeness of the people. That's real. And the third thing I notice is that all the comedians left decades ago. And it brings it out in me. And making fun of Canadians, and as I've already told you, and I hope it's obvious, is done with love. But I just can't control myself, because no one will ever laugh at your joke. And so every time I go to Toronto, which I try not to do, but I do wind up there, every time I check in a hotel, I'm like, you guys have hot water? Like, where'd you get all the electricity? This is unbelievable. And they always have the same response. We've had electricity for a long time, eh? Well, no, it's a joke. You don't really have sled dog parking in front, I know that. No, we haven't had sled dogs in a long time, eh? And so, so many sled dog and Molson jokes, it's just, and I'll never stop. But one of the reasons I do this is because I do think it's important to laugh at your circumstances, not simply because it makes you feel better, though it does, but because it gives you perspective on them. And humor requires some distance, some critical distance, both from yourself and from your surroundings. And you can't really see things clearly until you have that. And so if you have a country where the funny people feel like they have to leave, that's a huge problem. And that's the first problem. The second problem is you can't really be effective as a political movement or a resistance movement, which effectively you are, if you don't laugh at your enemies. Because not only are they evil, and they are, they're also ludicrous. They're ludicrous. And it's really important to say that because it saps their power immediately. Laughing at something, if you're a married man, you know that, no, it's true. Your wife can come and hit you in the face with a 2x4, and that would be less painful than having her laugh derisively at you, particularly when you get out of the shower. That would just end it for you. That would end it. Your male power would evaporate like a puddle on a hot day, like you'd be done. Because it has that effect. And so to look at your enemies, like let's say you had some sort of weird prime minister like to dress up in fuzzy costumes. It's super important to point that out a lot. Like relentlessly. Somebody told me last night that his base, I was asked to be at this wonderful dinner last night with two of the most famous people in Canada, the two most famous people, Lord Black and my friend Dr. Jordan Peterson. And I asked, is there anyone in the country who supports this guy? He's so, I mean, I know him only, I've never met him, I only know him through television. I know his cousin Gavin Newsom. He takes him seriously. And everyone notices, oh, yeah, young people, particularly young women, take him very seriously. They love him. And I thought, there's really only one way to combat that, and that's by pointing out what an absurd poser this guy is. He's like a ridiculous figure. Like, you should dislike and resist Justin Trudeau and his government to the maximum extent of your ability. Before you do that, you should just laugh at him until you can't breathe. The guy's like, he's showing up for a costume party when no one else is. There's no costume party, and there's Justin Trudeau. Like speaking as some sort of moral voice. Weird little cross-dressers. Anyway, that's my second piece of advice, once you've done that, which is very effective, and I know it's not the Canadian way because it's such a polite society that everyone feels morally bound to take everyone else's point of view very seriously and sort of nod gravely and pretend to consider their perspective. But there are some perspectives that aren't in fact perspectives, they're attacks on you. And that's the main thing that I want to say in the short time allotted today, is that you should recognize what is happening to you. This is not a political debate to which you've been invited to participate. This is a destruction of you and your culture and your beliefs and your children and your future as a country. And that's not overstatement. It's provable statistically. So just take 3 steps back. If you have a government that is giving fentanyl to your children, as they are in BC.
Wow.
I notice your premier has a no fentanyl to kids policy, God bless her. But how distorted is your world where you have to applaud the one politician's like, you know, we're not going to give fentanyl to the kids today. Okay? But
that's not even laughable. It's true though.
Someone's giving fentanyl to your children, what's kind of the message of that? Well, they're trying to kill your children, obviously.
Yeah.
Fentanyl? It's the #1 cause of death under 40 in the United States. #1 in the whole country. Followed by suicide. If you want to know where we are, we're about 2 years behind you. And it's only because we have a louder media space than you do that we aren't ahead of you. But if someone's getting fentanyl to your children without telling you, they're trying to kill your children, which are your inheritance. So the only meaningful thing you will ever produce on earth, okay, are your children. That's the first thing to know. Second, if they are trying to kill you, and by the way, I know I'm offending everyone, even this group, because no one in Canada wants to talk about anything. It's like an Episcopalian Christmas dinner. I grew up in that world, so I know everyone's 3 too many, and then someone will burn out. You wrecked my childhood! And then everyone will sit there with silence. It's so awesome. But Anglo-Canada, like Anglo everywhere, doesn't like to say anything out loud. But let me just do it anyway. If you're killing 50,000 of your citizens, and the government is doing that through the MAID program, and a lot of them are not actually terminally ill, they're just sad, and the government is encouraging them to submit to being killed by the government, and then we'll release the recent statistics. Like, what is that? What is that?
Genocide.
Yeah, it's genocide. That's exactly what it is. It's killing large groups of people. And who are those people? Well, we don't know, because your government hasn't raised the stat. What percentage of those are born in Canada? I bet right around 100%. So if you're a government, you have the duty to your citizens, people who are from your people, whose ancestors built the place, not exclusively to them, but primarily to them, to your citizens. Like, why else do you exist except to serve your citizens? And if you're targeting your citizens, how many people who arrived in Canada in the last 10 years have opted in into the main program? I don't know the answer. I bet around zero. There's all people are from here. And now the government brags, oh, we're saving money because they died. That's the darkest thing I can imagine. I bet there's zero conversation about that in this country because I know this country and I know what it's like. It's too horrible. No one wants to talk about it. You should talk about it. But more than anything, you should internalize the message of that, which is they hate me. They hate me to the point they're willing to kill me, which they are. And the third thing is, notice the erosion of your most basic civil liberties, not the ones granted to you by the crown, but the ones granted to you by God. And those would include the freedom of speech, which is inalienable. It cannot be taken from you no matter who is in Ottawa, or as we say, Ottawa. Which, by the way, is the correct pronunciation according to my friends in the Ojibwe community. I pronounce it that way every time on television. I get always angry. You know, you're pronouncing it correctly. You don't even know the name. It's like, yeah, I know a lot about Canada. I'm doing it on purpose to make fun of you so you will laugh, which you won't. And then this Ojibwe leader writes it into, you know, see, all the whites are wrong. It's actually Ottawa. Go Ottawa, baby! It doesn't matter who's in the Prime Minister's office. Your rights remain the same because you were born with them, because you are not a slave, you're a human being. And you have inherent dignity because God made you. That's just a fact. And if they're taking those rights away piecemeal and doing so in the name of public safety, even as they make the public sphere much more dangerous, which they have, in case you haven't noticed, Canada has a lot more violent crime now than it did 20 years ago. Have you noticed? Of course you have. You live here. And they're telling you you can't defend yourself against that crime. We're going to disarm you. You can't protect your life or your family. And you're like, oh yeah, it's for the public safety. It's just not a big deal. These are weapons of war. No, they're weapons of self-defense, which you need and deserve as a free person, not a slave. You can't complain about it. And then they're subsidizing the media to the point where all of your media outlets, which are disgusting, are state media. Because they're taking the state back. Do you watch CBC? I do, occasionally. I can turn in any hour of the day and I will learn that I'm racist for driving an SUV and not being trans. That's but interpret that. That's not woke. Oh, it's woke. I hate that. It doesn't mean anything. They hate you. That's what they're saying. They're saying that you are bad. That's exactly what they're saying. Don't lie to yourselves. That's what I'm saying. And we're very delusional in the United States because we're so distracted by stuff and electronic devices and the promise of next day delivery from Amazon of brightly colored plastic crap in China that we tend to be slow to figure out what's going on. But Canada has a different restraint, which is a cultural one. It's an Anglo-specific, Anglo-cultural one, which is just like, I don't want to deal with that. That's too uncomfortable. But in your heart, anyway, even if you voice it to no one but yourself, know what the message is. And the message is, you are bad. I mean, I'm going to say the most controversial thing ever. I watched when Montreal was cleansed of its Anglo legacy. And I'm not anti-French, just for the record, at all. But I am English, and I have friends in Montreal. And in this span of a generation, like, that's all gone. They were forced out. And they're like, okay, I guess we'll go to Ontario. What? My grandfather built the city, I'm not going anywhere. How about that? That never occurred to anyone. Because no one could say out loud what was actually happening. This was a series of acts of hostility aimed at you because of things that you didn't choose, like how you were born. And once you keep allowing that, you have no future, okay? So if they're limiting your freedom to say what you think, which is freedom of conscience, the most basic of all freedom, your freedom to defend yourself and your family against bodily harm, which has got to be a twin to the first one. If they're taking away your voting power by changing the population of your country, which they are doing, and no one wants to talk about that, Canada has the highest immigration rate in the world per capita. And shut up, racist! That's not racist. I don't care if they're coming from New Zealand. I don't care if you're taking the population of Stockholm and moving them to Canada. If you change the population of the country, you change the country. And you dilute the voting power of the people who are vested in that country, the people who are born there, who have lived there long term.
Amen.
Who understand the history and the culture of the country, who are bought in. And all of a sudden, their vote means much less. It's math. You guys do that. Math. That's horrifying. it's happening. And there's no public debate over it whatsoever. Why do you think that's happening? Is it for economic reasons? I'd be kind of okay with that. If someone could stand up and say, we're totally changing the population of Canada because we think it's better for our economy. Okay, tell me how. We can have rational conversations. We're adults. I'm a citizen. This is my government too. Tell me how that works. But they can't. Because that's not true. Look at your housing prices. Yep. Look at the strain on your services.
Legend,
look at
guys.
your health care system,
Absolute legend.
which no Canadian I meet brags about anymore. And one of the main reasons is it's overburdened. There are too many people. Oh, we need population growth. Really? Tell me why. Tell me why all of these slogans make sense. I watch Canadian hockey from time to time. They literally say diversity is our strength before they open the game. Okay, what does that mean and why is it true? Shut up! No, I'm not gonna shut up. You're telling me to accept the slogan, so it's incumbent on you to explain what the slogan means and why it makes sense. That seems like a common sense rule. If you're forcing something down my throat, tell me how it tastes before I swallow it. Oh, shut up, racist! No, not going to. Not racist, I'm not gonna shut up. Answer the freaking question. You weird
Freaking love this guy.
And the last thing I'll say, and I will stop with this because I'm sure I've gone beyond the time allotted.
Keep going.
Keep going!
The last thing I'll say, which also may be controversial because it sounds like a parochial concern or some sort of, weird religious thing or something, and it's not. But take a look at what they're doing to your Christians. And I say this for a couple of, I am a Christian, but that's not why I'm telling you this. I'm telling you this because there's kind of no more inoffensive and peaceful group in the world than the Christians. In fact, there isn't. Their religion tells them, commands them to turn the other cheek and to put the concerns of others above their own concerns. So if you have a problem with those precepts, explain it to me. Speak slowly so I can understand. I think every person in this room, regardless of your faith, can agree, yeah, I'm for that. I wish I was more like that. That's good. We need more of those people in society. Serve others for the sake of service. People who pray for their enemies. Who does that? Who would pray for an enemy? No one, except the Christians, and they do. They're commanded to. So if you're hassling that group, maybe you've got another agenda that we should be concerned about, even if we're not in that group. If we burn 90 of their churches to the ground, and the Prime Minister and his little weird buddies are endorsing that, burning churches, if you're on the side of burning churches, let me just say, I don't need any other facts of the case, you're on the wrong side.
Amen.
Amen, brother.
If you're throwing preachers in prison for preaching the Christian gospel, not for hurting anyone, not for making pipe bombs, not for trying to castrate other people's children, not for importing millions of people into your country who are not going to have work, just for the crime of preaching the Christian gospel, you go to jail. At the same time, when they're encouraging your kids to do drugs, and not just fentanyl, but weed, don't raise your hand if you have a 15-year-old son. But come up to me after and tell me what you think of legalized weed. For real. And if you have a 15-year-old son, you know exactly what I'm talking about. They did that to you and to your son on purpose. And so in a country like that, in a world like that, if you think that preaching the gospel is so dangerous that the people who do it need to be in prison, in shackles, you're serving someone other than the people of Canada, if you know what I mean.
Amen.
Amen.
That's really scary. And I don't care how much they dress it up in the passive-aggressive, self-help language of the modern left. Well, it's really about public safety. Every time I turn on your freaking television shows, everything's about public safety, which is a euphemism for hard-edged fascism, actually. And frankly, I'm a little bit more comfortable with the old-fashioned variety, where guys in tight uniforms goose-step through your town, because at least you know who you're fighting. And you know what it's going to take to liberate your town.
I think he's my
Get
hero.
rid of these people
He's
and
my
everything
hero.
will be okay. But when they show up and they're therapists with advanced degrees, and they look at you in the face and say, no, actually, little Dylan just needs more fentanyl.
Wow.
Little Dylan's actually a girl. And we're gonna, yes, he's a girl. Sorry, she's a girl. She's a girl. And if you don't agree, well, maybe we may have to remove Dylan to more care-affirming custody.
That's right.
Oh, you're going to take my kids away because I don't want to castrate them. They'll never say that, of course. Because clear language is their enemy. Because clear language exposes who they really are. They're not people who are trying to help you. They are people who are trying to hurt you. Anyone who goes after your children, anyone who encourages you to have fewer children, is trying to make you extinct. It's literally that simple. And it's only in the advanced West that we don't see that. Try that crap in Bulgaria. Try that in Serbia. How do you think that would fly in Serbia? We're just going to give little Voldak some fentanyl. And we think, you know, he may be... You wouldn't even get to the next sentence before you got shot. Because you're trying to kill someone's kids. And your average Serb, whatever you think of them, doesn't have generations of therapy talk that acts as a logical intermediary in his brain and prevents him from seeing what's actually going on here. They're trying to kill my kids. I'm the father. I won't allow it. I'll lay my life down to prevent it. It's literally that simple.
Amen. Amen.
So I'll start with this. The answer, before you take any sort of action or imagine that some election is going to fix things, which it's not, spoiler alert, because this country, like every country, very much, maybe especially including my country, has a lot of frauds in that business, sorry. It does. I would know. It's the one thing I know a lot about. Before any of that takes place, you need to change inside. Your attitudes need to change. And your timidity needs to be replaced by bravery.
Absolutely.
Amen.
The muddled thinking that you have about this stuff, the average normal Canadian, just like the average normal American, sees this stuff pop up on his phone or he's on X and he's like, I can't believe it, the world's going to hell. But it's scattershot. There's one here, one there, one there. No, it's not scattershot. It's of a piece. It's of a piece. They're all connected. And it's aimed at you. And if you don't agree, tell me how I'm wrong. But I'm not wrong. I'm right. And so the first thing that you need to do before changing anything in your country is to change everything about your heart. You have to be ready
Oh my God.
for a contest where the stakes are existential, which they are.
Did he just read out of my playbook?
Wilson and surprise guest Dr. Jordan B. Peterson.
Yeah, poor guy. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to sign off, guys.
I'm Brett.
I want to enjoy the show.
Yeah.
Or should I?
I had a little chat with Christian before we got started, and I asked him whether or not I could slip any F-bombs. Christian said, no fucking way. So I'm going to have to be really careful with how I moderate and manage the language. Now, with very short notice, Jordan and Tucker have been told that I'm going to provide them with kind of some cryptic words, a couple of sentences.
I got to meet them all, you guys.
And they're stuck with 2-sentence answers. Jordan, have you ever been cryptic? Yes. There, that was it. The first fucking time I've ever seen him, or the first time I've ever seen him cryptic. Tucker, you can do this?
I used to write haiku as a child, so yes.
All right, well, let's see where this goes. Let's start with Tucker. Joe and Kamala, 2 sentences.
Lovely couple on their way out.
Yeah!
Jordan, Christian, and Justin. And you can think about this one.
A little narcissistic for my liking.
That was tame.
We have a lot of this. We're going to have some fun here. Donald Trump.
I'll speak in sentences. orange ascendant. No, I would say, if you want to know who Trump is, watch the reaction to Trump. I mean, that's really it. I think Trump is politically immoderate. And I think that not because I'm totally crazy, I think I'm pretty moderate too, to be honest. I don't want radical change. But neither is Trump. And they're treating him like he's a Nazi, and that says everything about them.
Amen.
Jordan, Pierre Poilievre, or Poilievre if you wish. I'll tell you a quick story about Mr. Poilievre, a couple of sentences. I met him at the residence of the opposition, and I met his wife, who I thought was a very solid person. And one of the concerns
Sorry guys, they wouldn't let me bring my stand in.
The expense that they had racked up at the expense of the Canadian taxpayer for moving them into Stornoway, into the residence. And I thought, two things. I thought, all things considered, you probably have more important things to prioritize. But the fact that that actually bothers you, and that was genuine and unprompted, is a good sign, because I don't think that Pierre Poilievre thinks that your money is his. Or that he knows what to do with it more than you do. Right.
Tucker, Vivek Ramaswamy, he wants to build a wall between Canada and the U.S. Any thoughts on that?
Building a wall between Canada and the U.S. would be the best thing that ever happened to Canada. Not because the U.S. is bad, but because it's too easy for your creative talent and your economic producers to flee when things get bad here. And there should be a wall around Canada. And smart Canadians, if they stayed, and a lot have stayed, of course, but you've lost a lot of great people, and I know them because they live in my country.
Absolutely.
And I'm in the creative business. My business is filled with Canadians. And I always say, like, why couldn't you do it in Canada? Because it's state media. You know, no creativity allowed, only racist, tranny, climate. That's it. And so I think it would be great for Canada. I mean that.
We'll try not to make the wall too high. Jordan, the Freedom Convoy.
Woo!
It's been an interesting. Sit down, we got some conversation to come. It's been an interesting 24 hours.
Here we go, guys.
So you know that the trucker convoy was part, and also part of the leadership of a much broader movement of working class people all across the Western world. You're seeing that more, particularly in Europe now. There were some 200,000 German farmers and assorted protesters out over the last couple of weeks. So you saw very little coverage of that. The same thing is happening in Spain, it's happening in France, it's happening in Scotland. And part of the reason that it is happening is because working class people, in their implicit wisdom, have decided that they're not the problem that faces the planet, but the solution. And the truckers knew that, and they served in that function, as even Trudeau admitted not so long prior to his unforgivable, traitorous, and now deemed criminal activities, which should be treated as such. I thought from the beginning, you know, more power to the truckers. I think they handled that demonstration impeccably. They timed it brilliantly. They left at the right time. They did nothing but good. And they were treated like Russian collaborators and MAGA scum, and sometimes both at the same time, because that's exactly how demented Canada is. So more power to them, and thank God for the wisdom of the federal court.
Yes. I so fervently agree with what Jordan just said, and I was mesmerized by that whole thing, and I know some people involved. I do think, though, there's probably too much emphasis, relatively speaking, on the Prime Minister, and not enough on Chrystia Freeland, who I knew as a journalist working in Washington 20 years ago, she was at the Financial Times. And the fact that someone like that could ascend to a position of high authority in a civilized country like this is such a shocking. And I mean that. First of all, it proves the meritocracy is fake. If some, mentally deficient fascist is going to have power over you, okay? But watching David Menzies get arrested recently for trying to ask her a question, I mean, I really feel like people need to be very direct. No, this person has no moral authority over me at all. She's not qualified to even speak to me.
Okay. Those were extremely long 2 sentences, but let's keep rolling.
But heartfelt.
Yeah, no, you guys are the right guys. I mean, I never expected you to just follow the.
I obeyed
follow the
initially.
line. Yeah, bullshit. January 6th.
Well, January 6th was fraudulent, and it's taken me 3 years to get the full picture on that. I had that instinct. I'll just say there's nothing I can add to January 6th, which is an enormously complex series of events that still to this day is shrouded in secrecy and deception. And I know a lot about this subject. I'm from Washington. But I would just say one thing really quick. I watched that happen. I was not in Washington when it happened. I saw it on television. One of my children worked in that building, called me and said this was happening. And I instantly knew there was lying. I had no idea where it was coming from. Here's all I would say about it. If something happens in your country or in your life and your gut tells you there's something wrong with the explanation I'm getting, trust your gut. It doesn't mean that you understand what actually happened. I still don't understand what actually happened. It was a setup.
Hello.
I can say that conclusively. Who did it? Hard to know. The left did it. Who? But I knew right away that what they were telling me on NBC News and CNN and all the rest of the liars in my country was false. I could feel it, and I never wavered in my belief that they were lying to me, and now we know for a fact it's documented that they were. So my advice to you would be, if you feel something is deceptive, you were given these instincts at birth. There's nothing more reliable than
gut
your
instincts,
intuition. It's not
folks.
trying to sell you anything. It's not trying to hurt you. It's trying to save you. So don't ignore it.
Thank you.
Wow.
That was awesome.
That's like out of my playbook.
World Economic Forum. You got 3 sentences.
Well, the first thing I would say is that one of the things I learned very deeply in the last few years is that it's a very dangerous thing to make the assumption that the world is a limited resource zero-sum game. And then you might say, well, how can it not be? Because there is a finite amount of certain so-called resources. And I would say, well, the reason it isn't is because there isn't any desert that we wouldn't be able to make bloom and permanently make infinitely productive if we got our acts together in the manner that Tucker described. I've been writing a new book about the biblical stories, and one of the emphasis in that corpus of stories is continual, and the central message is that if you orient yourself upward and you act with the highest regard for yourself and for other people, there's no limit to the abundance that you can bring forth. And if you have faith in that, you don't have to be concerned about sharing. You know that there's not only more than enough for everyone.
Okay, folks, I'm going to sign off this and sign on to the old TikTok. If you want to go check out TikTok, I got to share with that platform now. Thank you very much. Remember, fundraising.